So welcome to today's Monday live stream. We are doing this a little bit earlier than usual, so if you are surprised that it is light outside still, you're probably not the only one. Due to the fact that tonight is a full moon, I moved this up to 6 p.m. because I have a full moon. I have full moon ceremony to do. So anyway, welcome to creating a practical book of shadows. And I'm just going to wait a few minutes to, just a little while to make sure everybody who wants to get on can get on. But in the meantime, I want to start off with a question. And that question is, what should go in a witch's book of shadows? So what should go in a witch's book of shadows? I feel like there are a lot of posts coming up. Hi, Liz. There are a lot of posts coming up in a lot of my Facebook groups about what to put in your book of shadows. And I'm not sure why that is. Like the collective witchcraft lady community we're all kind of, I think, gravitating toward our books of shadows. So my question is just to think about what should go in a book of shadows. Okay, so think about that for a second. Now, before we start, I want to talk about what a book of shadows is. You might hear it called hi Amanda, a book of shadows, a book of light, a book of dreams, a book of mirrors, because many people, I think, kind of shy away from that shadows because there are some witches who are on the lighter side, and there's some witches who don't care. They're just your average person with a light and a dark side. So you'll see it called a book of light or a book of mirrors, or some people call it a grimoire. Now, depending on who you ask, a grimoire and a book of shadows can be two different things. Some people consider a grimoire as the thing that has all of your spells and your correspondences and all of that, and a book of shadows is where you record the results and your journaling and your meditation. So just as an FYI, sometimes you'll hear people describe a grimoire and you might think that, hey, that sounds familiar. Isn't that a book of shadows? For most people, yes. For some people, no. So a book of shadows basically is a place where you keep spells, correspondences, just witchy information, the results of the spells that you have done, and you can use it for meditation purposes. You can use it for journaling. There are a lot of different things to put in your book of shadows, and every witch's book of shadows is going to be different. Now, what sets a practical book of shadows a little bit apart is the fact that for many of us, we create a book of shadows and then we don't find ourselves using all of that information. So if you're handwriting your book of shadows and you have a list, I saw one woman posted a list of things that she wants to put in her book of shadows. So if you're handwriting all of that and you're really not into herbs and you write all these herb correspondences because you feel like, well, someday you might be into herbs, or you should, because that's what good witches do. That's kind of, I don't want to say a waste of time, because you might learn something if you're handwriting something. But in reality, we all have this precious small amount of time, most of us, right? So we want to make the most of it, and we want to create a book of shadows that we are going to be able to physically use, and something that we're going to want to go back to. All right, so we see a lot of questions like, what format is your book of shadows? What do you put in a book of shadows? How do you organize your book of shadows? And we're going to talk about all of that today. But the first thing that if you have the printable, you get your printable out. And if not, if you want to just jot this down on a piece of paper, we'll return to it. We have to really think about how we're going to use our book of shadows. So just really quickly, I want you to jot down 3 things that you already do in your practice. What do you do in your practice on a regular basis? Do you meditate? Do you do full moon ritual? Do you do Sabbath ritual? Do you use crystals or herbs or moon phases or spells? What are 3 things that you do in your practice? And if you don't have 3 things to write down, that's totally fine, because all of our practices are different, and there's no shame in not being able to get your ass up to do a full moon ritual every month. You know, we all have different practices. So if you don't have 3 things, do not feel bad about it. So you've written down 3 things that you already do. And next to it, I want you to write down 3 things that you'd like to do more of. What would you like to incorporate into your practice? Have you been wanting to learn more about herbs or crystals or spell timing or the days of the week or astrology? What would you like to learn more about? What would you like to incorporate more into your practice? So write those things down. Okay. So 3 things you already do, 3 things you want to do more of. Okay, so now we're going to set that aside for a second. And there's a reason I'm asking you to do this at the beginning. All right. So we're going to start off by thinking about where you normally practice your craft. Now, this might seem kind of weird because we're talking about a book that we're going to write, but your book needs to fit your space if you're actually going to use it. So do you practice at an altar? Do you sit on the floor? Are you sitting at a desk? Where do you practice your craft? We all have different ways we practice. Sometimes it's all 3 of those things. Sometimes I want to sit on the floor. Maybe I want to sit at a desk. So that's the first thing that we're going to think about. Again, we all have different practices. Our books are all going to be different. So think about how much space you have in that space. So if you have an altar, like say you have an altar already set up, do you have a space on your altar that you can put your Book of Shadows? And I will tell you, it is difficult to like do a whole ritual if your book is not sitting somewhere, because the whole time, if you expect to just be like and do all the things, your hands might need to light a candle or put out a fire or dress a candle, and then you'll have nice oily fingers. So you're going to make sure, hi Isabel, you want to make sure that your book has a place to sit on your altar or in your working space, because holding your book the whole time sucks. And also, if you have an altar and you put it on the floor and then pick it back up because you have no space, that also sucks. And that also, why do I say it sucks, is because it's going to snap you out of that ritual mindset if you're like struggling to do this and struggling to do that. If you're in a ritual mindset, if you're grounded and centered in this, and you're dropping your book all over the place, or you're worried about moving things to find a space that your book will fit, that's going to be distracting. And it's going to take your energy and your focus away from what you're actually trying to do. So think about how much space you have. Now, if you do not have space for your book right now, I want you to think about making space for your book. Even if you have a small space. Like my old altar in my apartment was like, it's now my nightstand. It's actually a wine buffet. It's like 20 by 20, 18 by 18. So yeah, finding a space for my book on that was difficult, but it's important. Unless you have multiple tables, unless you can like expand your space somehow, think about that. And then when you think about your space and where you're going to actually put your Book of Shadows, think about what will fit better. Like, will a book like this fit better? Like that you can swish it around and lay it down. Oh, what is that? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't anything too interesting. And you can just put it like this. Or if you have a book like this guy, like it doesn't wrap around. So I need this much space. I need, you know what I mean? So, do I need a book that can lay flat like this? Or do I need a book that will lay flat like this? Again, we're talking about practicality. Before we're talking about what we're going to put in it, we need to make sure that it's going to be practical and we're actually going to use it. Because if you don't use it, it's a lot of wasted like time and energy, and it's a bummer. And you could write that down in like the number 2 in your printable, where you practice your craft and what size will fit your space. Okay. Good, we're moving right along. Also think about, is it important to you that you can move your pages around like a loose leaf binder or disc bound journals, or do you want something more stable, something more book-like, an actual book? So think about, is it really important to you that you can move your pages around? Or do you want something that's more stable? So I want you to really think about what size will actually fit your style and your space. Okay? Cool. So, any questions so far? I'm thinking probably not. Let's talk about creating your actual book. Okay, so this is like the main question that people come and say, am I missing anything in my list? Like, what would you put in your book of shadows? I'm not in a whole lot of witchy groups. I'm probably in maybe two or three or four, maybe, that I see often that are like witchy and not like woo spiritual. And I feel like just in the past few days, I've seen probably 6 posts about this. Am I missing anything? This is when I'm making a table of contents. So let's talk about the format. So some people want to type up their book of shadows, and some people want to handwrite their book of shadows. Especially artists tend to like the handwritten books of shadows. And sometimes people want to type it up instead. So think about what you feel is more comfortable to you. And when I say comfortable, I don't just mean like, okay, well, typing obviously for most of us is going to be faster than handwriting, right? That's for most of us, we type faster than we handwrite. So the words make it from our brain to the page a lot more quickly. But I am typing on a keyboard. I'm not like, and which is great. I'm putting that energy into the keyboard, which if you're like techno-pagany, you can like think that's going into the computer. But there is definitely something about handwriting something, and it part of it is the energy that you're putting into it, and part of it is the fact that when you handwrite something, you're more likely to remember it. So this is a couple things to think about. Typing is much faster, but handwriting, I feel like you put more energy into it. One is not better than the other. I'm not saying handwriting is better than typing, because I do both of those things for those different reasons that I just mentioned. And then we have blank pages versus lined pages. So you've got pages like this, which are lined, just your regular lined pages. And then we've got blank pages, of which I don't think I have any, because blank pages aren't usually my thing. Nowadays we have dotted grid journals, which is kind of like the best of both of those worlds. A lot of bullet journaling people have those kinds of journals. I have a typed book of shadows and have the pages in a binder and protect the pages with plastic sleeves. Yes, for sure. And Tracy, you totally have a really good point there. If you want to add graphics, you totally can add graphics to typed pages, and that is really fun. I have to say about so that actually kind of leads into the next thing. So blank pages versus lined pages, and then think about whether you want to use a binder, like Tracy says, or if you want to use a journal or a notebook. I have done both of those things because I'm a Coven High Priestess, and our Book of Shadows is shared because I want everybody should have access to all of our old rituals. I have everything typed up. I type up our rituals, and we have them on the cloud where everybody can access them in case they ever need anything. Like all of our liturgy is on there. And I thought I had a great idea, and I printed out all of the rituals, and I did exactly what Tracy said, and I started putting them into plastic sleeves, but we've been practicing for so long, I ran out of space super quick. So I just hole punched them and started putting them into binders. One of the problems with binders, which you will also have in like a journal type thing, do not get me wrong, is that you're going to run out of space. At some point, you are going to run out of space. So binders are cool because it's easy to print out stuff from the internet also. I know some people do that. And it goes more quickly when you're putting together your Book of Shadows. I could start on a weekend and be like, I'm going to make my Book of Shadows and take things from the internet, copy, paste, whatever, and have a Book of Shadows by the end of the weekend. But at some point, you are going to, if you're not just doing correspondences, if you are actually going to use it as a working Book of Shadows where you have rituals and you add your rituals and your spells and what you're doing, then you are going to run out of space. And so just keep that in mind. I have found that I feel like I run out of space more quickly in a binder than I do a book. And that might be because of the ease it takes to just print something out and put it in a binder, or how painstaking it takes to write in a notebook. But that's just something to think about. How much space do you have in your house? How many binders? Like, I ended up just shredding everything and going just to digital for all my digital stuff after like 5 binders, because my coven's been around for like 15 years, so we have like a lot of rituals because we meet for every full moon just about, and every Sabbath. So you're gonna run out of space. What's really cool nowadays, okay, so let's go back to Tracy's thing. She's got an awesome binder. If you want to have a binder that's like probably about this size, right? This is like a normal size of a binder. You have to make sure you have this much space on your altar. So if you have a tiny 20 by 20 altar, this binder is not going to work for you. Some binders you can bend it backward, although it screws up your binding. So you only have this much space that you need. But some binders, you need this much space on your altar. So just keep that in mind. One of the cool things that has been happening that hasn't happened before is we can buy small binders now that are about, I don't know, they're about this size. And they're, I think they're B6. I can't remember what actual size it is, but it's basically a half of the size of a regular binder. I have found that they don't bend backwards as easy, but you can find them now, and you used to never be able to find them. Ever. You'd have to order them from Office Depot, and now they sell them at Target. So if you want a binder but you don't want a lot of space, you can still get that cute binder at Target, and it's like half the space if moving the pages around is really important to you. Okay, let's talk about organization. This is not going to matter too much for you if you go the binder route or the disc bound route, because you can move things around. But if you are starting in a book, if you're starting like this kind of book or a spiral book, it's really important that you kind of, before you start it, or even if you started it, you can always change it because it's your book of shadows, who cares? Decide if you want to do it chronological or pre-sectioned. And by pre-sectioned, I mean, this is like pages 10 through 13 are for herbs, and 14 through 20 are for stones or whatever. So you pre-section it out and you just fill it in as you go. Now, this is something that a lot of people do now. I feel like that's kind of the most common way to do your Book of Shadows. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. There are a couple caveats. If you don't really know, oh yeah, Amazon's amazing. You can find anything on Amazon. You could probably get like tiny little sheet protectors too. Okay, so with pre-sectioning, there are some caveats. You're kind of guessing. So if you're like, I'm going to allot 3 pages for crystals and 5 pages for herbs, there's always going to be another crystal you're going to want to add, because there are an infinite amount of crystals out there. And there are books on them. I have the Crystal Bible. It's this big. And they're in so many different herbs as well, especially like the witchy herbs, right? So there's always going to be something to add. So if you do pre-section, kind of think ahead and think about, what am I going to do after I run out of space at that section? Okay. So yeah, let's talk. And okay. So sorry, I'm feeling a little under the weather and I have some cold medicine in me, so I apologize. Probably drinking wine is not the best thing. Now that I'm thinking about it. So we've got pre-sectioned. I feel like when I started coming into the craft, that a lot of people were doing what I started doing, which is doing it like as a chronological journey. So these are my books of shadows from approximately 1 million years ago, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. So I was really into the spiral bound, because you could tear it out if you mess up a page. I mean, the mess ups are half the fun. Now that I've been doing this for a while. So this is my first Book of Shadows. Thank you, 1990s. Okay. Um, and I did not do it pre-sectioned. I have tabs that explains the things that are here, but I didn't do it. I didn't section things out. Another thing that I don't have is a book blessing, which is a thing that people tend to put in the front of their thing. So that's pretty good. I just started, and this isn't when this is kind of, oh Lord. Shit. Sorry. I just got this out for this. I did not read this in advance, and it's very cringy because that's what happens when you start doing things as a teenager. But I just started out talking about how I burned first time casting. So this is in 1999. I've been studying for a long time, but now I was like, I'm going to do my first spell casting. And I burned a candle, a light blue candle, to try to get my then boyfriend to trust me more. It's so funny. I don't know why it's funny. It's funny. So I didn't start with a book blessing. I just went, boom, I'm recording what I'm doing, you know? And so I recorded all of that I did. Wow. I'm sorry for laughing so hard. I really have not looked at this. I should have looked at this before I started. Oh my God. Holy shit. Ugh. Okay. That's a whole nother thing. I feel like that's going to be a whole nother live stream. Some of these things that I'm reading. Okay, so then I just went directly into runes, and because runes is something I felt like I wanted to learn. So what I've done is I've got runes, I've got sabbats, just writing big old printing, big old just out of high school printing. Different alphabets. So I just kind of like went for it. And there are some good things, like, oh, here's the elements. So some of these are a little bit correspondency, and some of them are not. Some of them are, I did this meditation, I burned this candle to get this boyfriend to like me, but not like me better, trust me more. And the same thing like here. This is my second one, because again, you're going to run out of space. So this is quarter calls, circles, spell jar, simple correspondences. Let's see what that meant. Oh, happiness. Oh, so I did intentional correspondences. Emilk, rune purification. Again, do you see? More runes. Even though I did runes in this one, I got runes in this one as well. So I did it like a journey, which is pretty cool, because also cringy. That is something everybody's like, you're going to want to know. You're just learning right now. You're going to want to know. You're going to want to look back and be nostalgic. Because when you start, I don't know, some of you might already be like on your path for a while. We were all young ones, right? But I remember when I first came to the path, I was just full of like so much excitement, and everything was exciting and new, and and it's just exciting to start your Book of Shadows. And I was, people say you're gonna look back on that and think about that, and it's true. But also they don't tell you it's gonna be a little cringy, turns out. Anyway, so what I did, like, there's runes in this one, and there's runes in this one. So what I did, I don't have it anymore. I've got this guy over here, and I've got this guy over here. I think this one was my most recent. Honestly, this is something, here's another thing that people don't tell you. This is off of my, scheduled outline. Wow. I'm going to have some reading tonight. Something that people don't really tell you is that when you practice a lot, when you are using your crystals and your stones and your colors and your candles, at some point, if you fill your book with correspondences, you're going to be able to put it away, because you will just know what you're doing, because you've already used Rosemary 3 times this year, and Apophyllite or Celestine or whatever. Celestite. Did I say Celestine? Whatever. You're going to use all of these things. You're going to be planning your Sabbath rituals, so you will have those themes ingrained in you. So at some point, you're going to be able to kind of put your books away a little bit and go forward. So I haven't really written in this book for a while. Nope. Yeah. So I have one other book that's in there that I've written in, I believe, since this one. But, this Book of Shadows is something that you want to be able to return to. All right. And when you have all of these books, whether you do it in a spiral notebook or a binder, when you've been practicing a lot and you have a lot, you can create an index. I know some of us do bullet journaling, and bullet journaling is pretty cool because you have a book and it can be trackers or journaling or planning. And in the front you have an index, so you put like what it is and the page number. So like for example, this one doesn't have tabs. Let's do this one. This one is like runes. I could number the pages. Runes on page 4 and Sabbath on page 11, etc. And I could create an index. And when you have a bunch of different books, you can create like an ultimate index. I had a spreadsheet that said which book it was and what page everything was on. It's somewhere. I don't really obviously I don't revisit these books too often, but that is also a thing to think about, because again, it's really good to kind of think about the future, because the book you're creating, I think many of us come into the idea of a book of shadows like, I'm going to create, like I bought this book, I'm going to create a book that I can pass down to my daughter and she can pass down to her daughter's daughter. This book is blank because sometimes also it's hard to write in a really pretty book if you're afraid of messing it up. So don't be afraid of messing it up and marking it. But we all kind of think like we have this like, oh, this is going to be the most ultimate book ever. But really, it's a practical book. It's meant to be used. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to make this perfect book, because it doesn't exist. Okay. So at the beginning of the live stream, I asked you, okay, so I talked about format and organization. Those are all on your printable, so you can write down like what formats you think you'd enjoy and how you want to organize it. So in the beginning of the live stream, I asked you to jot down 3 things you already do and 3 things you would like to do more of. Now I did that in the beginning instead of here in the middle, because sometimes it's easy to like visualize your future book of shadows and think about what you should put in your book of shadows. But I don't want to talk about what you should put in your book of shadows or what other people are putting in their book of shadows, or what good witches put in their book of shadows. I want you to be able to create a book of shadows that will help you. So what content supports what you already do in your path? So if you have the printable, you want to write this in 1A. So jot down a couple of ideas, because you already know what you already do in your path. What can you add to your book that will take you to the next level in those, to the next level? So if you already use herbs, what else can you do? What other ways would you like to incorporate those? How can you take that practice to the next level? So if you honor the full moons, like what can you add to your book of shadows that will help support you in creating your full moons? So if you're one of those people who go online and like say, you subscribe to like Mystic Mama, and Mystic Mama says, oh, this is going to be moon in Aries, do this. Or like my posts will say moon in Aries, here are a couple ideas. You might want to take your practice to that next level by jotting down some things that you can research, because when you research something, you're putting energy out into the world. Like a lot of people think this is a lot of work, but the more work you put in, really your success level is going to get so much higher. As a total research nerd, I cannot tell you how many times I have put all this research into a spell, and I figured out the planetary hours and the day of the week and all of this thing, and I like hand calculated crap. And before I even get a chance to do it, my totally random goal happens. It's crazy. Like, so it really is energy in is energy out. And and it's not just like I lit a candle, like I'm making energy, like I'm trying to manifest using energy. It's even the energy that you're putting in. So when you're doing this, you're kind of like pre-gaming your future self, like that you're doing this research that's really going to help you. So think about what you're going to take to the next level. And then what content would support what you'd like to do more of in your path. So what do you want to bring into your path? And mark that down in 1B under content. So same thing. If you want to do more moon rituals, what would help you? Like what actual practical things will help you? And that might be, making a calendar of all of the moon phases, or studying kind of the flow, like the power flow of the moons, and how the moon's energy kind of affects you or your environment, and how the sun's energy and seasonal changes can affect your environment. So you can align yourself with those energies. It's all about like what you personally want to do. It's not about what other people tell you to do. It's not about what the books tell you to do. It's all about what you feel is right in your intuition and your gut and your actual just interests. It's okay to just want to buy and play with stones. I mean, a lot of people will be like, no, these are sacred. And they are. They're sacred, but they're also pretty. Let's not pretend that we have not bought a stone because it's freaking pretty. Like, we do that. So make sure that you're doing what is right for you. So those are those pieces of content that you just thought about or jotted down. That is really, if you're starting your Book of Shadows, that is what you should start with. That is what you should focus on. You should focus on the things that you want to learn. You should focus on the things that will help you the most. Not a giant list of herbs or a giant list of gods or a giant list of this or that. Because, hey, guess what? Turns out somebody already did that for you. This is Llewellyn's complete book of correspondences. And it's pretty legit. As somebody who I got it and I was like, I'll see how legit it is. I'll see how it matches up to my research, and it matched up really well. And I was very, very happily surprised. So this is a great book. If you don't want to put, tons of correspondences in your book, get a book like this. And then copy only the correspondences that go with the things that you want to do. You don't need to have every herb in the whole world in your book. And I mean, I can see having like herbal identification if you're going to go wildcrafting. I get that. But if you are the kind of person who wants to do research and things like that, you're probably not going to do that, I don't know, randomly, I guess. If you want to research from books, you're going to be at home, you may as well just get this awesome book. It is a little expensive. It's $30, but if you want correspondences, they have correspondences for everything, animals. So when I see a list of correspondences, intention correspondences, life, learning, everything, this book has everything. So when people say I'm going to add all these correspondences, I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. I'm like, well, do you have this much space to write in? Because these are a lot. That's a lot to put in your personal Book of Shadows. So if you do want to do correspondences, write down the things that are most important to you. Do you have herbs? Do you have an apothecary? Write down the name of the herbs that you have and start from there. So don't just do what other witches tell you should do, or try to do what other people are doing, because other people's paths are not your path. Your path is your path. And if you want to use your spare time wisely, focus first on what you want to do. And then here's another book that I really love. This is my dog-eaten version. I have a non-dog-eaten version, but this is you could tell this is the one I work with the most. This is the one that used to live at my work. It's Encyclopedia of Spirits by Judika Isles. And she also has a spell book, which I have. I don't usually use it because I like to write my own spells. But this spirits book is amazing. And I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but if you like to research, it gives you some really good beginnings of myth and symbols. And it gives you some more keywords to help you research better and research deeper. And get a little bit more deeply connected and aligned with the energies of the deity or spirit that you're trying to honor. Okay, that being said, so I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands unless you're going to copy all of these things, just buy these books and have these books, and allow your book of shadows to be your book of shadows. This is a personal thing. So if you want to do a ton of correspondences, that's amazing. But again, make sure it's stuff that's going to be useful to you. Scroll down. Yeah, these books are awesome. I mean, these are my 2 bookshelves. These are all the books that I own, because every year I go through and I clean books out. And my coven sells them at Pagan Pride Day. We sell used books and some new books and oracle decks and all of our handcrafted stuff, our oils and things. Check us out at Pagan Pride in Long Beach next month in California. But so I only keep the books that I really, really like. And these 2 books have made the cut every single time. So I totally suggest these books. Yeah. So just as a reminder, they have whole books for correspondences. There will always be something you're leaving out in your book of shadows. Make sure you're not feeling like you're filling up a cup with your book of shadows. Like, oh, I need to fill everything in. I need to get everything on this piece of paper right now. Because sometimes we feel like, oh, I need all this information. I need to learn it right now. I need to put it in my book. It's a journey, not a race. And that's something somebody told me when I first started out. It's a journey, not a race. And it really is. And I'm like, no, I need to know everything. I want to know everything right now. And I want to write everything in my book and be super knowledgeable and whatever. I don't want to wait. I want to know everything, which is great. That's worked out for me. But really, it is a journey. I'm still learning things. I've been on this path for 20 years or so. More than 20 years, really, if we count all the studying time. And I'm still learning. There's always something new to learn. There's always something new to add to your book of shadows. So does anybody have any questions? Any questions at all? Yeah, so I really just want to leave you with the feeling and the idea that your book of shadows is for you. It's something that needs to fit into your lifestyle and fit into your path and fit into your space, and if you want to make a beautiful wheel of the year in your spread in your book of shadows, do it. That'll be beautiful. It'll be amazing. But also don't feel like you have to because other people are making these beautiful things happen. I mean, you can if you want to, but think about when you're thinking about planning your sections and how you're going to organize your book of shadows, think about how you're going to come back to it. How are you going to use it? Because it's really cool, the idea of having that charmed book of shadows. I know that was probably a long time ago for you guys, but having this beautiful book that just sits on this book. I even have a thing to hold a book, a giant book. I used to have a giant book. Oh my gosh, is it under here? Oh no, it's not. But I had, I wanted to see, but I had a scrapbook book of shadows that was over 8.5 by 11. And I would boom it out on this book stand. That was I thought was very impressive. I still have it in the rack of 5 million witchy things, but I never break it out because guess what? It doesn't fit my space. So don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Don't waste your energy on something that doesn't fit your space or your lifestyle or your path style or your interests. So that's pretty much all I have for today. Just if you do this, if you really think about your path and how you're going to use it, your work is not going to get unnoticed. It's not going to be unused. Your book is going to get used and it's going to get all that delicious energy that happens during your rituals and your spells and even your research times. I like to light candles and incense when I'm in a research mode. That's a lot of awesome energy. And to have your book around all of that, if you're familiar with the laws of magic, Bonawitz's laws of magic, there's a law of contagion. We go over that in my upcoming group program. But there's a law of contagion, which means if you have something close to something else, if I, for example, if I enchant a dollar bill for a prosperity spell and I put that in my wallet to try to bring money for me because that was in my spell and I put it in my wallet, it's that energy is kind of contagious. And that's how it also works for your Book of Shadows. And then you can allow your Book of Shadows to be a tool to allow for new inspiration and growth on your path. So that's pretty much all I have. The books that I tend to hold on to, heck yeah, I will talk about Tracy, I will talk about books all day long. I love books. But you can see I have a very small amount of space for my books. Probably because I have all of my other shit in here is witch shit. By the way, they do not tell you when you start to become a high priestess that you need to have space for all of the shit that you're going to get. Yeah, so the books that I tend to hold on to are books that are out of print, number one. Hold on a second, let me turn this underlight on real quick. Okay. All right, that's a little better. You could tell the sun's setting. I tend to hold on to books that are out of print, cool and weird books. This is a book from the 80s called Magic and Medicine of Plants. It is an amazing book. I tend to hold on to like classic books, An ABC of Witchcraft by our girl Doreen. And I also hold on to the almanacs. Almanacs and almanacs and just like cool books that I started with, honestly. I've got a bunch of Laurie Cabot books I still have, books that I stole from my mom when I was a teenager, like a Scott Cunningham aromatherapy book I stole from my mom. She's not getting it back. But also there are like these one-off weird books, like Women's Spirituality and Ritual. It's a tiny baby book, but like it's amazing. It's amazing for my practice. It would not be amazing for everybody's practice, but it's amazing for my practice, and because I like to do like red tent women's circle type things. But yeah, so I tend to keep things that interest me, like weird things like the Greek magical papyri in translation, because I kind of lean toward like Hellenic gods and practices. So this is pretty awesome, pretty cool to get. See, I told you, you can leave if you don't want to hear about my books. I definitely have some that I'm pulling out that I'm going to sell this year. Like this is going to be one I'm pulling out, Celtic Myth and Magic. How freaking 1990s does this look right now? This is what about a flashback? When were you published? This has devolved into I'm hanging out with my friends. You guys are all my friends. 1999 is the 7th printing of this. But she's not known for her awesome research. So some of the stuff's a little off. So that's like a no for me. Because do you? This was like, is it the same cover, Tracy? Is it the 1999 cover? That is one of the weirdest things about practicing for a while. All the covers change. I mean, there are good things in every book. And when people ask me, like, what books should I read? I'm new. I said, read all of them. Read all of them, even the ones that people say are terrible. People say, don't read Silver Ravenwolf. I say, do you hate to read? If you hate to read Silver Ravenwolf. They're super easy to read. Also, you get to learn discernment, which is really important. Like, what do you think is bullshit and what do you think is legit? You know, do I have them? I think I got rid of most of them. Let's see. I kept this is my 2-pound bag of lavender. I have most of the original Sabbath series from Llewellyn that I've kept. They're all like probably first editions or whatever. They're just things that I go back to. Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs, Wheel of the Year by Pauline Campanelli, Buckland's Complete Book of Complete Book of Witchcraft, the big blue book. Some just if something resonates with me in them, like I have a book written by people in North Carolina, and I enjoyed their book because for each working, they broke it down and explained what laws of magic accompanied each spell, and I really, really enjoyed that. That's something that I teach in my program. because it helps you build better spells and it helps you get inspired if you don't know what you want to do. So those are like the main things, like correspondences, books that are, relate to the pantheons that I'm interested in. That's about it. Okay. I'm going to show off this one last book because I didn't know it existed. And I've been looking for a book like this for like a decade, and it was made in the 1990s. If you like to sing and you want to sing pagan songs, this is your book. Circle of Song. Songs, chants, and dances for ritual and celebration. I have literally been looking for a book like this forever. And it has music, sheet music. It's not just words. You could actually learn how to sing all of these songs. So I know some of us really like to sing, and it's all broken out into different, like, woman power, male power, healing and love, elements, peace and unity. It's all very, like, it's broken out into kind of intentions. So if you like to sing, I am so excited. I just put it back in my bookcase because I've been carrying it around in my giant purse for so long. Book. Highly recommend this. All right. Any other questions? I love talking about this. Okay. So I hope that this was helpful for you. And that's pretty much it. I really do want, again, just real quick, I want to make sure that I'm like ingraining this. Like, this is your book, this is your path, it's nobody else's path. Make sure it's usable for you. Make sure it has what you need. Make sure it's contributing and supporting to you on your personal path. Can I do a live stream about witchy music? Like, yeah, I can. Let me write that down. Witchy music. Tracy, I'm gonna reach out to you to get some clarification on what you think would be, what you might mean and what would be helpful. All right, so that's it for tonight. I hope you guys, I know my hair's all crazy. Sorry. It's very warm in here, so I got my fan going. And that's it. So I hope you guys have a lovely evening, and I will see you next week for, let me see what next week's thing is, which I should have been super, super prepared. Next week is getting back into your craft. So next week we're going to talk about what happens when you're gone for a while and you want to get back into it. We're going to talk about what might inspire you, how to create a routine, and we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk a little bit about disconnection too, because sometimes we feel disconnected from deity or disconnected from spirit, or, however you see that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to try to get reconnected, because it's something that I struggled with for a really long time, like a long time. And if you've ever tried to lead a coven while feeling kind of disconnected, it is no bueno. So that was a priority for me. So I have some suggestions if that's something you're struggling with. So I will talk to you later. I was going to say next week, but I'll be on the group. So I'll see you later. Bye.